Welcome to Even Tacos Fall Apart, where authenticity is celebrated, and I hope your healing begins. I'm MommaFoxFire, and this is your reminder that life is messy, and so is figuring out who you are, what you want, and how the hell to get there. If you're here listening, you're probably already doing the hard work of showing up for yourself, and that matters. Today's episode is one I think a lot of us, whether you're 18 or pushing 50, 60, 70, are going to feel deep in our bones. We're talking about young adulthood, identity, purpose, and what my guest calls the explorer mindset. We're cutting through all the pressure to have your life perfectly planned and instead talk about how to show up with curiosity and courage when you're not sure what comes next. The world that young people are trying to grow up in right now is intense. Between social media, nonstop access to everyone's opinions, student loans, an unstable job market, and the pressure to have your career, finances, relationships, and entire future figured out by the time you've hit your early 20s, it's exhausting. And it's easy to fall into the headspace of, if I don't know what I want to do with my life right now, I must be behind. But that's not true. The idea we're supposed to have it all figured out by 22, that's a lie a lot of us were sold. My guest in this episode is Tess Brigham. She's a licensed therapist, a certified coach, an author, and she's been called the Millennial Therapist for a reason. She has been helping young adults navigate identity, stress, burnout, and life direction for over 2 decades. Tess talks with a ton of clarity about why so many young adults feel stuck, overwhelmed, or like they're failing when really they just haven't had the tools, support, or time to figure things out yet. We talk about what the explorer mindset actually is and why it matters. It's not about having everything perfectly mapped out. It's about action. It's about trying things, making mistakes, learning from them, and figuring out what feels right. It's about being willing to move forward even when the path isn't clear. This conversation touches on mental health, societal expectations, career pressure, generational disconnects, and why we're all more burnt out than we want to admit. But it also brings a lot of hope, because Tess doesn't just name the problems. She talks about real steps we can take to change our mindset, push past fear, and make progress. If you're a young adult trying to figure out your next step, or you're parenting, mentoring, or just trying to support someone who is, this episode is for you. We need to have more conversations like this, the kind that remind us we are allowed to not have it all together, and that figuring out things takes time, space, and self-compassion. So grab a drink, settle in, and let's get into it. Hello, welcome back to another Mental Health Monday. I just realized something I forgot. Oh, 1 second. This always happens. This is always the way. That's okay, because that was an easy, just quick. I had to open up the captioner so that it can help anyone who can't listen at the moment. Hi, welcome to another Mental Health Monday and technical issues with Mama, because that is what this turns into. But I am really excited for our conversation tonight. We are going to be talking about young adults and the explorer mindset. And if you have any questions related to that topic, feel free to enter them into the question queue, into the chat on YouTube, on Twitch, and make sure that we can go ahead and answer those for you while we're live. I am joined tonight by Tess Brigham. Tess, thank you so much for joining me today, for taking the time out of your evening. And I want to start off by saying I love your background. It is beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. My niece did it, actually. I can't take a lot of credit for it. She designed it. And, yeah.
Good job, niece. Excellent work. For real. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about Tess, and then we will get blowing and going. And I see a question already in the question queue, so thank you for that. We will get to that in just a moment. Tess Brigham, dubbed the Millennial Therapist by CNBC, is an expert psychotherapist, certified coach, author, podcast host, and TEDx speaker. She specializes in helping young adults discover their unique life path in order to go out into the world and make an impact. Tess is a sought-after corporate speaker and mental health expert and covers topics such as burnout and stress, embracing Gen Z, and generational gaps in the workplace. Based in the San Francisco Bay Area, Tess has over 20 years of experience and is a regular contributor at both CNBC and Forbes. And she has 2 podcasts. One of them is Psych Legal Pop, and the other is The Gin Mess with Tess, and we were talking about those ahead of time. Both of them sound excellent, so if you are looking to go check out either of those, make sure that you do. I'm also going to post some social links if you guys are looking to connect with our guest tonight. Make sure that you click through on these. I'll get these posted. And just don't forget that engagement is key. And so if you go and you connect with her on any of these, make sure to give a couple of her posts a like, make sure to give her a follow, make sure to comment on something. That really helps with discoverability as well. So there's the links that you guys can use to connect with her. And we do already have a question in the question queue, and that is, what is your favorite poem?
Oh, no. So I can tell you, I don't have a favorite poem, but I have a favorite poet, Langston Hughes.
Okay.
And I think anything by him, I love all of his writing. It's been a long time since I've read any poetry. But Langston Hughes, I love him.
Excellent. Well, if anybody is looking to go catch up on their Langston Hughes reading, you can. It's always funny to me whenever it's like this person has been, gone a long time, and the folks who haven't heard of it, it's like an opportunity to just go discover a little piece of the past. It's really cool.
Yes. Well, it's funny because when you mentioned poetry, I think of someone like Kendrick Lamar, who's halftime show, and if you look at the words that he was saying, that was poetry.
Absolutely.
The revolution will be televised.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All of that.
Yeah. I would definitely agree that a lot of singer-songwriters are poets, but especially ones with a specific message like that. They just really find that way to hit it home in a way that is super impactful and impressive to me.
Yeah. The ability to create art and art and commerce, art and entertainment at the same time. I mean, it's not easy.
Yeah.
It really isn't.
Yeah.
So
can you tell us a little more about your experiences and what made you become interested in specializing in working with young adults?
Sure. So I've been working with people for about 20 years, and about 12, 13 years ago, I opened up an office in downtown San Francisco, a therapy office. This was before I became a coach. And I didn't know who was going to show up. And then all of a sudden, all these young people started showing up, 25, 26, 27-year-old. And they were all, mainly female. And I'm in the Bay Area, so a lot of people come here because of tech and the big tech dream. And so, they were all from these other parts of the country, and they'd come out here, and they're, adulting and doing all this stuff. I was like, oh, wait a second. You're these millennials I've heard so much about. Like, the whole world has been, at that time, everyone's complaining about millennials. I'm like, but wait a second. You're not lazy. You're not entitled. You're not at all what is being said about you. And I remember what it was like to be in my 20s. And I remember how confusing and hard that was. And I remember running around San Francisco trying to figure myself out and doing all of this too. But the world was so much more complicated and difficult. And I was dealing with these millennials who had, they had graduated during the recession of 2009, 2010. Like their careers were already they were struggling to kind of get things rolling. And I saw how that affected them, and how social media affected them, and how, technology and the expectations of work, how that changed. Because when my first job at a college, I worked 9:30 to 5:30. 5:30, we shut off the lights, we locked the door, and I went home. And my boss had no way of getting a hold of me unless she called me at home and I picked up.
And you happened to be home.
And I happened to be home. So that's the thing, is that the world, like, the expectations for work were different. And so there was this whole generation. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I just got really interested in young people. And I got interested in millennials, the generation, and how technology and the way in which they were being raised, and because they were sort of seen as the trophy generation. And how did we get to these? Why did we start giving out these trophies? Why did we do it this way? What happened? And what what went awry. And what I found, especially with millennials, was that they very much were this generation that were told, work hard in high school, you'll get into a good college, work hard in college, you'll get a good job, work hard at your job and you'll be happy. And so I had all these clients that were really smart, went to Duke, went, to these Ivy League schools, and yet they were like, I did everything I was supposed to do, I'm not happy. And that's when it occurred to me that there's this disconnect, and there's not a lot of help for young people. There's this attitude of like, well, I figured it out, so you figure it out. And then so I just became really interested. I eventually became a coach. I started integrating coaching into the work that I did. And then my millennials got older and they started getting married and having kids. And I still do work with those clients. They're just older now. And Gen Z popped up and I was like, oh, you guys are the same, but different. and some of the same things, I just have to laugh because they're repeating the same things about Gen Zers entering the workforce that they did millennials. I'm like, you guys aren't putting this together, that you're making the same judgments. But this generation now they're digital natives and they're the first generation. They will have more interactions by the time they turn 18 online than they will in person. And this is what we're seeing. And they're entering the workforce. And I was with them all during 2020, 2021. I had lots of clients that graduated high school and college in 2020. I saw what it was like for them, those first jobs. And I think that's one of the things is that the older generations, it's not necessarily that we are being ignorant about this and burying our heads in the sand because we don't believe that it's hard. It's just that if you don't know what it's like, if you don't work with these people, and that's what I tell people, it's like, listen, if I didn't do this work, I too would be criticizing young people. But I've spent the last umpteen years like getting to know them and understanding what it's like to just be young.
Yeah.
And then coupled that with this weird world that we live in, a world that parents can't even talk to that much. Do you know what I mean? I feel like my parents could give me pretty good advice. They're like very old baby boomers, like silent generation baby boomers, and I'm a Gen Xer. And I felt like they could give me advice, but the advice that my clients get from their parents, I'm like, that is the worst. What? Like what, print out your resume and walk around and pass it out? I'm like, that's the advice they're giving you? So I think that's the other part of it too, is the world is changing and the expectations are changing and things are moving very rapidly. So what would work for someone 5 years ago, 10 years ago, isn't going to necessarily work for them today.
Yeah.
And that's what's so different about the world that we live in.
Yeah.
And I could go on and on, but that's how it all came about. So I always say that young people, I didn't find them, they found me.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it.
Okay, this is my calling.
It's interesting to me, a lot of millennials will seek out therapy. And I think that's being passed along to Gen Z as well, where, my kids have a view of therapy that I didn't have until I was a grown ass adult. And even then it took me many years to be like, oh, therapy is a good thing. Therapy is something that is okay. And so it's definitely one of those, it's hard to get advice from people who haven't been there. And it's hard to get advice from people who don't understand and who don't want to understand too, who don't have that drive to be like, why is this so difficult for you? Why is it this way? We have someone in our community who got advice from his grandfather, that exact thing. Take your resume to the mall and walk around and hand it. And it's like, they don't even know what to do with that in a store anymore. You're going to hand them their resume and they're going to be like, what do you want me to do with this?
Yeah. No one wants paper.
Right. So it's really difficult. You mentioned, kind of the 2008, 2009, I was in the workforce at that point. And we were just talking about that the other day also, where it's like, that was so impactful on my career specifically. And I am so grateful that it happened when it did and not a few years before, whenever I was very, very, fresh out of college, and not a few years later, whenever I had more responsibilities and everything. I'm like, it happened at a good time for me, but still I watch movies like The Big Short and I get pissed off watching it. And like, how did we let this happen? And then there was someone who was saying like, this feels like 2007, 2008 again, right now. I'm getting those same feelings. And I'm like, having lived through that and lost my job because I'm in construction and that was a horrible time to be in construction. Like, yeah, it's starting to feel really similar. So it's amazing to me. I'm hoping that 2020 was Gen Z's 2008 and that there's not another one coming because they survived
Hmm.
that. They got through it. Most of them did, and it's like I don't want that to happen again, especially so quickly after 2020. Like that would be
Yeah,
awful to happen again.
that's the part that's really hard about now is that things are coming at us fast and furious,
Yeah.
and we don't take into account the impact of technology on us in the sense of, and we're just now because that it takes a while for for research to catch up with itself,
Yeah.
right? We have to see how something happens. So what's happened now is we're at this point where it's like, oh, okay, social media has been around for 15 years, 17 years, right? So now we can look at it. Now we can do it. And so I always have to laugh, especially I'm raising a Gen Zer. My son's 17, so I'm part of this group too. But what was it, 2023? The Surgeon General came out and said, I think the social media might be a problem for kids. Like maybe we
Yeah.
shouldn't give them a phone until they're 14 or something. I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe. So right. And so all of us are looking around going, well, no one, now you're telling us this, our kids are
They're past
old.
that.
Like
Yeah.
it's done. Okay. And that's, I think millennials and Gen Zers, unfortunately, are a bit of these guinea pig generations.
Mhm.
They very much have. I mean, millennials were the first generation to come about and become, thrust out into the world when everyone had the ability to comment on it.
Yeah.
Like that was it, because now everyone has the ability, everyone's got a platform. So people have been criticizing youth and moaning about how they don't know anything and then they're entitled and lazy from the beginning of time. But poor millennials saw that. And so then Gen Z's been watching them,
Mhm.
watching what's going on and trying to kind of reverse course. Um, and I'm a big advocate for what they're trying to do with work. I'm like, go, you keep fighting, you keep getting in there, you don't do what my generation did, which is just accept
Yeah.
the crapola that we were given. Fight for
Absolutely.
what you need, and what is, because what you're asking for is not unheard of.
Yeah. It's not unreasonable to ask for
No,
what you need to do your job
no,
at
not at all.
all.
Oh, but what was I going to say is the impact of the tech on us. I think
Mhm.
that's the other part of it, is what people don't quite understand is that all of this, the fact that we see everything happening, like wars and things have always been happening, all of, racism and sexism and, all of these things, they've always been going on. It's just that because we live in this world where we can see everything and everything's coming at us constantly, that we are tired. We are taxed.
Yeah.
And I think that's another big thing, that people sort of look at young people going, these Gen Zers are lazy, or they're tired, or they don't want to work. It's like, no, they're really taxed. They're
Yeah.
exhausted. They're mentally exhausted. And we have to start looking at what's going on now more as this, if you think about the Industrial Revolution and what happened then, it was like, okay, we figured out like, oh, wait a second, maybe people should only work 40 hours a week. But unfortunately people had to work 6 7 days a week for a while in order
Mhm.
to get that. And unfortunately these generations are a little bit of these guinea pigs,
Yeah.
the first people on the line, like, working things out. And that part's hard.
Yeah.
That part's really hard.
Mark says my motivation is even more selfish. Sure, I want the kids to be all right, but I also personally would like to stop struggling through historic events. Okay, yeah, that
Yes.
one meme comes to mind with oh, what is his name? And he's just like leaning against a wall with a cigarette down, and his eyes are back and closed, and he's just like
Oh, Ben
another.
Affleck.
Yes, yes,
Ben
yes.
Affleck.
That's the one.
Yes.
Just don't mind me. Just another historical event. Please make it stop. I've had enough.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you're
Yes.
called the Millennial Therapist. Do you feel like that still applies to you now that the millennials are grown up a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean a bit, I think, but yeah, it's hard because I was given that, it's funny because people think that I name myself and I'm like, well, no, someone else did, and
Yeah.
and then I decided to ride with it.
Yeah.
So, roll with it. But yeah, I mean, I always think of myself as like a therapist for young people. like young adults, or people that are trying to figure out who they are. And there's lots of Xennials who are right on the cusp. There's millennials. There are millennials who are trying to still figure out who they are, what they want to do.
Yeah.
And that's very much what I focus on is, this time of transition, this time of figuring out how do you do this. And listen, you can do this when you're 40. You can do it at any age. You can reinvent yourself or shift things around for sure. But what I love about working with young people is like this is the first iteration of it. Like this
Yeah.
is the first time that they're figuring this out. How do I do this?
Mhm.
And how do I figure out who I am?
You
You
think
know?
it's easier or harder if you're 40 to reinvent yourself than if you're like 20?
I think there's pros and cons to both. I do. I think that and I know this because I'm 51, that every decade that I hit, you get more and more confident. Can I swear?
Huh? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Can I
Absolutely.
swear?
Yeah.
Yeah. You give less fucks.
Yep.
You really like, and I talked to a 60-year-old the other day and she's like, you have no idea. Wait until you hit 60. She's like, you really don't care. So I think that there is something about being a bit older and having a life experience and understanding yourself better and not caring so much about what people think and all of that. But there is also something about being young and just not knowing what you don't know.
Yeah.
And I often think about the things in my life, like becoming a therapist. I think if someone had told me what it would really take to be a therapist, I don't think I would have done it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that's like parenting is another one. If someone really sat you down and said, okay, this is what parenting is going to be, without really ever experiencing, without having the love that you have for your child, you'd be like, oh, no,
Yeah.
I don't want that at all. So there are certain things that are, just because you just didn't know any better,
Hmm.
are actually pretty good because you're not getting in your own way
Yeah. That's
sometimes.
fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
And it's hard to think. I just turned 40. Let's see. 12 days ago I turned 40.
Oh,
So
wow.
you
Wow,
said,
happy belated.
even at 40, I do not want to reinvent myself. I'm very happy in my career. I'm very happy with
Oh,
where I am and everything. However, I think about like, would this have been easier if I wanted to reinvent myself and choose something different at 20 than now at 40? I think for me personally, it would have been way easier at 20. Way easier. But
mhm.
would I have wanted, would I have had the, I don't know, the guts to do that, to change the course that I was
Mhm.
already on? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I feel like this also makes me think of the thing that I love to bring up, which is the conceptual art piece about the what age did people accomplish things, because there's lots of people who didn't accomplish
Mm,
things until later in life. So if you're not
mhm.
familiar with that one, it's a website, and you can just go to the website and type in an age. It doesn't matter what age. You can type in some, like, I don't even know if 100 is an age you can type in. Oh, my numlock is not on. There we go. Let's see if they have anything for age 100. Yes. Alice
Oh,
Porlock
wow.
of Great Britain published her first book when she was 102 years old. So like
Wow.
it's never too late to do something
Mhm.
of worth. And you can of course go on there and see who accomplished things at 7 years old too, if you want to
Yeah.
really hurt yourself and hurt your own feelings. But that's always a good one that I love to share with people, because it just goes to show you, hey, no matter what age you are right now, it's not too late to do whatever it is you're
Mhm.
wanting to do.
Well, and I also hear this too, right? People will be like, "Oh, if I get the PhD, I'll be 42 by the time I graduate." It's like, well, you want to be 42 regardless,
Yeah.
right? So, do you want to be 42 with a doctorate, or do you want to be 42 without one? So, do you want people calling you doctor at 42? I mean, so that's the other part of it is that yeah, it's that whole thing of like, when's the best time to plant a tree? Well, yeah, 30 years ago, obviously, but
Right.
the next time is just right now. Just do it. And I think that that's one thing that I've noticed where we tend to have tendencies one way or the other, where either we tend to jump in, some people will jump in way too fast and like just, and then other people, it takes them forever to get to things. And I'm always just a little bit like, you have to make smart, educated decisions, but at some point you have to just act.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest part of this is you have to do your research and know what you're getting into, but at some point there is a there is an endpoint to it,
Yeah.
and then you just have to go for it and do it.
Mm-hmm. If I get my PhD at any point in my life, which I don't really plan to, so this is not that big of a threat, I will make even my children call me doctor. I will no longer answer to mom. That is Dr. Mom to you. Oh, that would be a lot of work. Do you have a true crime story that fascinates you?
Well, I have lots of true crime stories that fascinate me. I mean, so for Psych Legal Pop, my sister, it's a show that I do with my sister, and she's an attorney and I'm a therapist. So we talk about pop culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. And it's funny because we just covered the American murder OJ
Mm.
case, and that was on Netflix, that documentary. And even then, we were like, really? Is there something else to say? And it's like, yes, there is. There is more to say about this case. So I think I'm really fascinated by these cases that were significant when I was younger, like OJ and Lacey Peterson, and because that was also a California Bay Area case. And I happened to be, I was down in LA at the time that OJ was going down the 405. I was working down there. I was interning for the summer. And
Wow.
so that, like, these things were very significant in my life. And so those are some of my favorite cases, and I could talk about them endlessly, but there are a million others that just fascinate me. I'm really always fascinated, not the OJ, but something like Lacey Peterson is just did Scott Peterson really do it? Is it possible
Yeah.
that he didn't do it? Why did the Innocence Project take his case on if they didn't believe that he could possibly
Mm-hmm.
be innocent? That's I'm always fascinated by that.
Yeah.
Like, did this person really do it?
There's the stuff that the public knows, and there's the stuff that they don't know, and
Hmm.
you never know anyone's entire life. Like,
Yeah.
you just don't. When my grandfather went missing, it was one of those things that, like, some shit came out about him that I never
Hmm.
would have known, that I didn't need to know, that I didn't want to know. And it's like, well, now the world knows it because his life is under such scrutiny for those 5 years he was missing. It's like everyone was up in his business and finding these little details about his life. Some of them didn't matter at all. Some of them had
Hmm.
no bearing whatsoever on his disappearance. And it's like, well, now it's out there. And now it's online,
Yeah.
which is a super fun thing. Oh, OJ was right at the birth of the 24-hour news cycle, which is responsible for so
Yes.
many current events. It's all connecting in such fascinating ways. Yeah, that 24-hour coverage of OJ
Hmm.
that was wild, and that was one of those things that
Yes.
you just hadn't really seen it before, and
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
crazy.
And just having the case and the court TV, and that case, it's so layered because it's about money and power, but it's also about race, and it's also
Yep.
about celebrity, and it's about marriage and men and women, and then something that, unfortunately, domestic violence. I mean, it really got us talking about domestic violence. We still are, we're in a better place than we were before. We understand it, but unfortunately, it's still, there's a lot of misinformation
Yeah.
that's out there. And something like the status, something like over half, at least half of all people will be in some sort of domestic violence
Mm.
situation at some point. I mean, it's very prevalent. And I think that it opened up our eyes to so many different things. Um, and but it was also very much about race and LA and the cops, and it's so layered.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is, and it's yeah. You never know what else going on behind closed doors, and
No.
those domestic violence statistics are staggering, and it's like you you almost don't want to believe it. I've talked to plenty of people, and I've had my own experiences where, like, yeah, I definitely believe it, but at the same time it's like I wish that weren't the case. But it's just that
Hmm.
people don't want to talk about it. It's embarrassing sometimes if you've been the victim. If you're the perpetrator, you're definitely not going to talk about it. But even
Hmm.
on the other side of it, it's like, how could I let myself get to that? Like, there's so much that
Yeah.
goes into that. And it's one of those things that, of course, we don't know. I'm sure those statistics are even still underrepresented, undercounted, because so much of it goes unreported and unresolved and just untreated. And so, yeah,
Hmm.
that's wild. It's absolutely
There's
wild.
so much shame around it,
There is.
right? I mean, there's so it's the shame that people feel, and we have to work on the world, everybody. We have to work on how we think about it, how we speak about it, and to take that shame out of it.
Yeah.
Because at the root of it, this person loves the person.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, they're being hurt, but and they also are being, that's love. So they have love for that person, or that person's, you know, they're financially tied to that person. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many layers to why people stay. And I think it's just very, I mean, it's a classic kind of thing. It's very easy from the outside looking in
Yeah.
to say you should do this, you should do that, but you don't love the person.
Yeah. Or they stay for religious reasons, or they
Yeah. Oh yeah.
stay for the kids. I did both of those for a really long
Yes.
time before I finally got out. So like
Yeah.
there's many, many layers, but yeah, a lot of it starts with someone that you love, of course.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
Yeah.
You got to kind of come to grips with that. But we're not here to talk about that today. We're going to talk about something much more lighthearted, I'll say, which is the
Yes.
explorer mindset. So tell us what the explorer mindset is, and how does that differ from maybe the more traditional ways of navigating young adulthood?
Sure. So I call it the explorer mindset because what I noticed when working with clients was when we would sit down and sort of think about, like, what do you want to do with your life? Where do you want to go? What makes you happy? That there was a lot of this focus on, okay, well, I need to figure out what the end is first, and then I'm going to backtrack it back. But then what would happen is people would get stuck.
Yeah.
They'd be like, well, I think I want to be a lawyer, but I don't know. I've heard this about this, and I don't know. What if I get into law school and I don't like it? And what if this happens, right? So they're getting fixated on lawyer, and then they're not taking any steps at all. So they sort of the person would stay put and do nothing. And in order to know if you should go to law school and if being a lawyer is right for you, is you have to explore, and you have to get out of this headspace of, I need to know what the end is first. And so I think about it in terms of, when I think about exploring, I think about, when we're traveling. When we go to another city or another country, wherever we're going, we allow ourselves, there's a bit of forgiveness, we allow ourselves to explore. We allow ourselves to seek out things, and if we get lost along the way, we don't beat ourselves up. And a lot of times when we get lost, we discover things that we never thought we would ever see. So, but because you're in that headspace of, oh, I'm exploring, that it just allows people to kind of just let go of this assumption of, I need to know what the end is. Yeah, you have to have a sense of where you're going when you travel, right? You need to get I mean, I was about to say map, but like, you pull up your phone, you get a map,
Yeah.
you find where you're going, right? You pick these various destinations, but you also kind of allow it to be, you allow it to be whatever it's going to be.
Hmm.
So when someone comes to me and says, okay, I'm thinking about becoming a lawyer, it's like they immediately go to this place of, okay, well, I guess I have to take the LSATs. It's like, no, 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 please don't do that. What that means is, let's explore becoming a lawyer. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, you can, reach out to people that that are lawyers, and different kinds of lawyers, and ask them, what do you do all day? Like, what does being a lawyer entail? What kind of lawyer are you? What kind of lawyer are you? Is do all, all being a lawyer, a lot of it's a lot of writing, unless you're a criminal attorney. For
Hmm.
the most part, any kind of civil work that you do, it's a lot of writing, and that's what people have to hear is work is what we do all day long. It's got nothing to do, that our titles and our salaries are great for cocktail party talk, but they are not an indication of whether or not what we're going to do is going to align with ourselves and what
Hmm.
we really want. So you have to figure out, what does this job do? And what will you be doing every day, all day, 5 days a week? And that's really where I have people start, is that exploration place, and exploring. And then, if you then arrive to the place where you've talked to a bunch of lawyers, you figure this out, you do want to do it. Okay, now explore, what does that mean to take the LSATs? Like, what does that look like? How would you do that? So much of it is just about allowing yourself to make mistakes, allowing yourself to be a bit of a tourist of your own life and not feel like you have to know what you want because you don't know what you want. You don't.
Yeah, I like the idea of going and asking a bunch of people, hey, what do you do all day? Because my
Mhm.
kids will tell you that my job is sending emails and sitting in meetings. And that is a lot of what I do because I work from home and
Mhm.
but if I were to like really break it down, the things that I do in my job that I'm very good at are the things that align with what I like to do. And so
Mhm.
I happened into this profession on accident. I say on accident. I went after what I wanted to do from a position that I didn't really want at the beginning. And so I saw an
Mhm.
opportunity and I grabbed it and it was just one of those things that was like that looks fun. I'll do that. And I did a little bit of exploring and kind of got into it. And I'm so fortunate that it worked out because I did not do what you're talking about, which is like
Mhm.
really investigate, would I even be good at that? Would that interest me? Is that something that I could do long term? I didn't do that as a young adult, and I feel like that probably would have benefited me. I maybe could have
Mhm.
gotten where I am now a little sooner, but my journey has been fine.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining about it.
Yeah.
But I love
Yeah.
that because my oldest is 18, and he very much wants to be a teacher. He knows what he wants to
Mhm.
do. He's known for years that's what he wants to do. I'm like, I could never be a teacher, so good for you. I'm glad you know.
Mhm.
He's done all of the like he's volunteering at a school and he's a teacher's assistant at an elementary school, like all of these things to take steps toward that because he knows that's what he wants to do.
Mhm.
My youngest is not there. I mean, he's only 11, so I think he's going to have to
Mhm.
do a little more of this exploration whenever he gets older. Obviously, I'm not pressuring him to do it now, but yeah,
Yeah.
if my oldest didn't know already, dead set on being a teacher, I think that would be something that would be really cool for him. But I could also see him having a very hard time with that because
Mhm.
he is one of those people who, oh, bite mark, perfect timing. Because bite mark says, nope, can't even start a new hobby until I'm sure I'll be good at it. And I was just gonna say,
Mm.
my 18-year-old is one of those people who's like, I need to know that it's gonna work. I need to know that it's gonna go well. I need to know that this is what I want, and then I will,
Mhm.
and then I will action it. So how do you get around that? How do you get around that kind of like, no, I need to know ahead of time that I want to be a lawyer.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, some of it is a little bit of exploring a bit of, well, what would happen? What would happen if you went down that road and it didn't turn out the way you wanted to? I always encourage people, because this has come up a lot. I always encourage people to do things that with low stakes, start with low
Mm,
stakes. So, for example, I had a client who, she's not a great dancer and she was taking these dance classes and she's like, I don't know, I'm not good at it. And I'm like, well, are you auditioning to be, a ballerina? Like, what is happening here? And it was like, no, it was exercise, it was fun, it was a hobby, but she wasn't perfect at it. She wasn't. And I was like, but I encouraged her to keep going
yeah.
because it's low stakes, your livelihood's not with that. But what she learned over time was, and she didn't really get better, but what she found was, she was like, she learned how to sit with the discomfort of not being great at something, but she still enjoyed it, and she really focused on the enjoyment that she felt, the enjoyment of it, and that's what she was like, I'm here for this. So I always tell people, these are hard things to learn how to do. That, yes, it is, no one wants to start something to then find out that it was, all going to fall apart. But at the same time, who's to say that if everything quote unquote fell apart, that was necessarily a bad
Mm-hmm.
thing? Right? We need our mistakes. We need our falling down. We need our moments. Like, I know it's not fun for people, and people spend way too much time trying to avoid falling down or whatever it is, but you need that, because that's where we learn. We learn more from our mistakes than from the things that go well. And your son might listen. There are a lot of people out there that absolutely, from moment one, they know what they want to do and they do it, and that's great
Yeah.
and good for them. But the majority of people don't.
Yeah.
The majority of people really don't know. And I'm one of these people that I thought, if you asked me when I was 18, what are you going to do with your life? I had it so set. It was nothing what I'm doing now. But I had
Same.
my own sort of quarter life crisis when I was 27, where I realized, oh my God, this dream, this quote unquote dream that I had, I wanted to work in Hollywood and movies and TV. And this dream was something that really was based on, my 12-year-old self thinking that this is what would make me happy.
Hmm.
And then I just kept kind of going and going and going and going and going. And what I found was that there were through lines in the things that I enjoyed that related to that. I mean, it doesn't surprise me now that I'm doing this podcast and talking about movies and TV, and all of the performing that I did and all of that, it's all paid off in different ways. The first career that I had, it's all paid off in different ways. It's helped me tremendously. And that's the thing, is I didn't know at the time. At the time, I thought I had, quote unquote, at 27 wasted, my 20s on this
Yeah.
career, and then I was going to have to, quote unquote, start over again. But that's the thing, is that no, I mean, that's part of who we are. We need we need this stuff. This is part of our journey, and this is part of our information.
Yeah.
So if you never fall down, you're not going to get enough information about yourself.
Yeah. Not to keep leaning on my 18-year-old's life for
Mhm.
for stories, but he just had his first interview, and
Mhm.
he showed up. The guy wasn't there who was supposed to interview him, like all this stuff. But
Oh,
right before he went to this interview, I was telling him, like, remember that this is low stakes. It's your first interview. Even if you don't get the job, there's just something you can learn from it. Like, you're getting the
mhm,
experience of going to an interview. That's a
mhm.
win already. Like, you've already
Yeah.
gotten something out of this. And so but it's hard to show up for something and to say, like, I want to do this, and this is the path that I'm
Mhm.
on, and then be able to change that and pivot a little bit from it is a little hard. And
Yeah.
there's also a lot of pressure to have things figured out by the time you go to college at
Yes.
18, and so
Mhm.
you have to pick a major. I changed my major like 5 times. It's fine, y'all. Like, it's all right. And you can always go back and get a different degree later if you really need a degree for some reason in something
Yeah.
else. But how do you help people let go of that expectation that you were supposed to have things figured out the moment you turn into an adult?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is, right, helping people see, like, whose beliefs are these,
Mm,
because a lot of it is, right, so much of our own crapola we get from our parents, and our parents
yeah.
got it from their parents, and their parents got it from their parents, and this is all influenced by our parents and society and all of it. For example, for me, this idea, this, because I talk a lot about burnout and stress, and when I'm trying to explain to people, is like, somewhere along the way, we told ourselves that people who are busy all the time, that work all the time, are good, and that people that don't work all the time are bad. And so, and a lot of this, I mean, we've had this for a long time, this up and down, but the world that we live in today, since you can work all the time, it's becoming a bit of a problem. Like, there
Hmm.
were workaholics before, but they would clock out at 6 or 7. But now we have workaholics that don't ever stop. Like, they go to bed and then they're back on it. Um, so that's the thing, is that there's a lot of messages that we get that aren't even our messages. They aren't even what we want or what we believe in. It's based on somebody else's beliefs, or what the world, this person thinks that you should be doing or not
Yeah.
doing. So much of it is, it's starting with really understanding, like, where are these thoughts coming from, and helping people kind of tune out the noise of the world, the noise of their families, the noise of their friends, and then turn up their own internal, like, what do you want? What is going to make you happy? And that's the other part about the explorer, is part of that exploration is, I want people to explore and then reflect, explore, reflect, like, go off and explore, and then take a moment and think, okay, did I like that? Did I like what I was doing? Was that enjoyable? What parts did I like? What parts didn't I like? What, well, am I, and take that time to really figure out that, in any experience that we have, there's going to be things that we liked, things that we didn't like, things that resonated with us, things that didn't, and that our job is to parse those things out take out the things and then be like, okay, so if I take, now I have more information about myself. Now I take all this information together. Now what choice do I make?
Mm.
And that's a big part of what careers are, is like when you were graduating, when you're in high school and college, right? The world is your oyster in some way. Like you have all of these options. You can go anywhere, do anything, but you're not really qualified to do much. So even though there's this giant world, but so much of careers is like slowly weaving through and until you get to this point, and then you finally get to this very narrow place. I mean, I'm 51, and when I started graduate school 20 plus years ago to become a therapist, I did not say to myself, well, I'm going to be a therapist and I'm going to be a coach and I'm going to combine them together and I'm going to work with young people. And this is how I'm going to, I didn't do any of that. I didn't know. I didn't know. But okay, but I had to start somewhere,
Mhm.
right? You have to start somewhere. And so that's the thing. It's this whole kind of, until you finally get to an age where like what you do is very narrow.
Yeah.
You do become an expert in something and you do become focused on something. But again, you cannot look at that person who's an expert. If you're 20, you cannot look at the 50-year-old expert and compare yourself to them. Like that's no.
Yeah, you couldn't have told me at the start of my career working in construction as a receptionist that eventually I would be selling IT services for
Mhm.
critical missions to the government. Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way. I would have been like, I'm gonna what?
Yeah.
But here I am, and it's like, I this position was created specifically for my skill set. I
Hmm.
had no idea that this was even going to be my skill set. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's no way that I could have foreseen where I am now. And if you get into this business going, I want to be exactly that, that's going to be a really,
Hmm.
you're making it a lot harder for yourself,
Yes.
is what I think. If I had
Yeah.
tried to get here, it would have been a lot harder than the way that I did get here.
That's why I keep coming back, right? That's why you have to explore.
Yeah,
That's why you have to see it as
yeah,
exploration and not a destination.
yeah. I like that. And I feel like that is what I have personally done, but not on purpose. So if you're
Yeah.
looking to do that on purpose, and let's say you're looking to do that on purpose now as a 20-year-old, but you also have some sort of responsibilities to take care of, like rent and utilities and that kind
Hmm.
of stuff. Is it that much of a challenge to have that explorer mindset while you're also having to manage those responsibilities?
I mean, it's certainly it will create more challenges, but it's not impossible. I mean, I think that it depends on whatever the person's particular situation is, but I would say then you can still explore. You might just explore in a very different way.
Hmm.
It may look a lot differently, or it may take you a bit longer.
Yeah.
If you're working full time, it may be you spend an hour every morning exploring versus being able to do it all day long.
Yeah.
But so much of this is about, what I always tell people is like, most important thing is just the doing, and
Mhm.
actually just doing it, just going out there and being, making those phone calls. If you're working full time and you're not happy in your current job, which we've all been there, we've all gotten to that place, then some of it is a bit of like, yeah, okay, you're not going to have the luxury of being able to like spend hours upon hours pondering what you want, but you can carve out time every day
Mhm.
to think about that and reflect, make those phone calls, ask those questions, and eventually you will look up and you will, like, a couple months will go by and you'll be like, wow, I have a lot of answers now. Okay, yeah, now I can do this, now I can make this transition.
Yeah. I feel like that is the luxury of time is a huge luxury, and it's a huge,
Hmm.
I mean, we could definitely spin off into a whole discussion about privilege and just the
Yes.
ability to do
Oh,
those kinds of things, and who has the most time to do these exploring all day instead of, an hour in the morning or an hour after work or whatever.
yeah.
But yeah, that challenge of time and timing is a big one. And I'm sure that's got to be
Yes.
something that you come across a lot with people saying, "I don't have time to do this."
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is that, yeah, we have time. Everybody has time, right? It's just a matter of priorities. I have a stack of books that I need to read. I can sit here and tell you I don't have time. The reality is I'm watching TV shows and I'm not reading the books. Like, I have right? There is always, there is always time for things. And how much time you have, it's about being intentional
Mm,
and using it. And so yeah, you may only have 15 minutes. Okay, but you can still do something in that 15 minutes.
yeah.
But I think that's what's so hard about the world that we live in today is that because of this technology, we are very distracted. We have a hard time focusing. So much of what we're experiencing right now, I want to say that, eh, so much of it is because of this technology. It is taking up our time and focus. It is making us exhausted. Our bandwidth is low
Yeah. And it's
for
designed.
more
It's
stuff.
designed that way. It's
Yes.
designed to keep you
It's
on it.
designed exactly. It's designed to keep you on it. It's designed to get your attention. It's
Yeah.
designed to get you focused on things that you actually don't necessarily need to be focused on,
Yeah.
like things to purchase or things to buy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I had to put a couple of my different social media apps have a timer. After an hour in any given day, it turns off. I can't open it again. So,
Wow. Okay. I think I might need to do that.
yeah, I had to limit specifically TikTok, and I just had to limit Instagram as well because I was just like, all right, my kid and I've got a couple of friends who will just send me reel after reel after reel on Instagram.
Oh,
And I'm like, I will sit there for an hour and not realize that it has been
mhm.
an hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
And you've
had to
watched
put that on there.
15. Yeah.
Yes, and
You watched like a
it's
million dog videos.
yeah,
Yeah.
and sometimes you need that break. Sometimes you need that
Mhm.
break to say, hey, I gotta mindless scroll for a minute because I'm too overwhelmed. I just need a little bit of something. But you just got to be careful that it doesn't pull you in. But it is designed to pull you
Yeah.
in. That's hard. That's hard.
Yes. Yes.
For sure. What are some of the biggest challenges young adults face today that they didn't face 20 years ago?
Yeah. I mean, definitely technology and I think what's really hard about social media for young people is, when I was younger in my 20s, I had a better sense of like what it really meant to be in your 20s.
Mm,
And I think what's so hard about the world that we live in today is these young people, they are exposed to so much and they're exposed to people and lifestyles and lives that are just like, this isn't your life, and it probably never will be. It doesn't mean that you're not talented and you can't get there, but it just means that most likely, like, that's the part that's hard is that when I was in my 20s, everybody around me, we were all broke. None of us were driving fancy cars. None of us had money. So like I didn't feel like such a loser because I was very much when I looked around, exactly where I needed to be. What's hard about young people is that now they have this device that's stuck to their hands that they can access at any time that exposes them to people that look incredible and people who have these lifestyles that look amazing and people who are these influencers and they're doing this and they're doing that. And I think that that's the part that's hard is that I could maybe when I was younger grab a magazine and flip through it, and yeah, that was unrealistic and it was airbrushed and it was all of those things, but that was such a small fraction of our lives.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Magazines and TV and seeing this and the lifestyles of rich and famous, like so much of that. But now it's like all of social media, you can just follow a bunch of billionaires and millionaires and people
Mhm.
who have these crazy lives. And speaking of true crime, one of the shows that we talked about, it's actually coming out tomorrow, is the Gabby
Oh, I
Petito
want to see
case,
that
which I
one.
think is,
I saw the
yeah,
little
it's
preview.
really well done.
Is it?
Really well done. I had watched another one about her a couple years ago, and this one I thought was very good because they got all the footage now and they really
Yeah.
have an understanding of the timeline and what happened and all of that. But she's a great example. That's a great example of if you just saw the photos of the two of them, they're young, in love, in a bikini, lifting her up, here we are, we're in a van life. Isn't this wonderful? Isn't that romantic? And so, yeah, what's tough about social media is it captures just this one moment of perfection and that's what we think, oh my God, this is what their lives are. Oh my God. But But what we know is that wasn't the truth. Like
Yeah.
she was deeply miserable. She was trying to get away from him. He was controlling and abusive. And that's the part that is really really so tricky is that, yeah, we get stuck on capturing a moment and assuming that this is their life. This is
Hmm.
who they are. And it's like, no, you're seeing an image that they've curated for you. So you interpret it however you want. So that's the thing. It's like this assumption that if people are smiling on social media, that means they're happy. And I think that's really hard. So I have a lot of clients who don't have really realistic expectations for themselves about like how much they should be earning, what they should look like, how things should be. I think the always having to be on all the time part, I always say millennials, they're the generation, you guys just love life hacks and you love any way to like do multiple things at the same
Yeah.
time and some sort of app. There's an app for
Hmm.
it. You guys want the app, right? But I think that part of that is your generation came about at a time where you were expected to be on all the time. So
Yeah.
you're all trying to figure out like, how do I do this? How do I tackle this? Um, that is a big difference. And I just think that what we take in and see all the time is a lot more overwhelming. I mean, news used to be an hour. What was the local news, and then there was the national news, and then maybe your parents would watch the news again at 11. But for the most part, there was, you got the information. You believed it would be truthful because the journalists were supposed to be
Hmm.
truthful. You believed it to be correct. You believed it, and that was it. But what's happening now is that, right? That we're seeing wars and famine and death and destruction and racism. I mean, just awful things all the time, all day long, and it's a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it's affecting young people's psyches. It is. It's affecting all of us. But if your brain's not fully formed, it's really affecting you. And those are just some of the few of the things that are
Hmm.
different about the world that we live in today. I always say that being young today is 100 times harder than it was.
Yeah.
And everything's recorded. Everything's
Everything's recorded.
recorded.
That's what I was just thinking about
Everything's
that too.
recorded.
Like everyone
God
has a
forbid
Ring
you make a
camera.
mistake.
Yep. Everybody has a
Mm-hmm.
Ring camera. Everybody has a video on a camera on their phone. Everyone's going to record it. There's surveillance everywhere. Like I couldn't go TP someone's house now. I get so
Yeah.
caught so fast.
But even like, I mean, I'm sorry, but all the dumb things you did in high school or college, like just
Yes. Yes.
dumb
I don't
being
want that
drunk or being this or
recorded.
being that,
Right.
like, yeah, I'm so glad that
Oh,
there's
thank
no
you.
evidence of that.
No, absolutely.
But the flip side of it too is, and it allowed us to live. Like
Yeah.
we got to be in these moments. Like we really lived. And it's funny now because now that my sister and I have this podcast, we're always laughing because we like, oh, when we're out together, we should take photos and we should put them on social media. We never remember. We never remember because it's just not how we think about things and how our lives are. And that's the other part of it. Is I see these other people who are their whole, they're at a concert, like video, you're never going to watch that video again. Why
Yeah.
are you doing this? Like but they're not living. And that's, I think, one thing that's really hard is that, you know, we're not allowing ourselves to be present
Yeah.
in our experiences.
Yeah. It's very tempting to be like, "Oh, I should post this."
Yeah.
And then focus
Yes.
on getting the right picture, the right whatever. I take 1,000 photos of the kids. I can't help it.
Hmm.
That's never going to change. I've accepted that about myself. But even whenever I'm out doing something with a friend, like I went and saw The Labyrinth with one of my girlfriends not too long ago, and we got to intermission, and it was one of those like there's a live concert, and they had the movie up there, and they were doing the live concert music, and anyway, it was really cool. But the thing is, like, I was there with her, and I hadn't seen her in forever, and we got all the way to intermission. I was like, oh my God, I haven't even thought about taking a photo because I was having such a good time that I hadn't even thought
Hmm.
about it. And then, of course, I took the photo.
Yeah.
But it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to just be in that moment. And if it's not
Hmm.
something like you're talking to a friend you haven't talked to in a long time, it can be real tempting to just kind of slip into that,
Yeah.
oh, we should take a photo and post it somewhere kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How can someone start to shift from a fear-based mindset into an explorer mindset?
Well, I'm a big believer in small incremental steps.
Mm.
So I would say that depending on for example, if you are someone who is very you're like, okay, I really always think about the destination in mind. It's really hard for me to be an explorer. I would say like I would pick the least scary thing that you think that you could do without knowing what the outcome is going to be. And it could be something as simple as going to a class or interviewing someone or doing something like that. But it really does start with picking the first thing, which is scary. I always call it scary but doable. If it's not doable, you're not going to do it. If it's not scary, you're not pushing yourself. So you need something that you
I
know you
like
can
that.
do,
Yeah.
and you're going to have to and you are going to feel uncomfortable. So that's okay. That discomfort is part of the process and it's okay. Don't run in the opposite direction. And then you're going to do it, and then you're going to, take a step back and reflect, and then okay, now you're going to do something harder and harder and harder. So it's always hard to talk about these things in the abstract. It's so much of it of how you get someone to shift their way of thinking and that mindset. So much of it is about them,
Yeah.
like what they're holding on to, what's getting in their way. But I think that for the most part, I would continue, if you're doing this on your own, is like to continue to challenge yourself of, that thought of who's telling me this? Is this my thought? Is this what I want? If I'm the one going and doing it, do I really want to do it? And just like, and how did I feel? Because so much of things are about how do we feel about how we feel about ourselves and how we feel when we do things. It's the same thing with like chemistry with a person, right? That's how we feel. How does the person make you feel? And then but how we feel about things, that's the piece that we really have to get in touch with. And that's what I would keep, like, just have you keep coming back to. Well, how do you feel when you're doing that? How does that feel? What is that like? And not getting caught up in the other part of, does this look good to society?
Mm.
Will this make me money? Or what will my parents think? That kind of thing. Like really getting in tune with you and what
Yeah.
you want, and then small incremental steps.
Yeah. I love the scary but doable piece of that. Like, I think that that's a really good way to phrase it. And I'm
Mhm.
probably gonna repeat that back to 18-year-olds. So whenever he hears this, if he winds up hearing it, and he probably will have heard it from me 5 times between now and then. But yeah, I mean, you gotta push yourself a little bit, and you have to make things doable. It's if your
Mhm.
to-do list is filled with things that are impossible to do, then it's never going to get done. It's just not.
Yeah.
And if it's filled with some like sometimes you just need to break it down also into doable things, because
Oh
the
yeah.
the thing that is not doable is become a lawyer. That's not a to-do list. That's not a to-do list item.
Yeah.
What's the smaller piece that you can actually do? The transition from school to adulthood can really feel overwhelming. And I know that my 18-year-old is about to go through that, and his girlfriend just went through that not too long ago as well. So, what practical steps can young adults take to navigate that with more confidence?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of the things that I've mentioned around, like, taking the time to really stop and think about that. But, the best thing for a young person, especially if you don't know what you want to do, if you're
Mm.
not quite sure, that's okay. Great. Great. So, what I would always recommend doing is just start. Pick something. Don't, you know, use that friendly connection that you have in your family or whomever, and get that first job and just start. Like, because that's the thing, is you don't know what you want to do. Okay, great. Start working, and then that will tell you what you want to do. That's the hardest part about work, is we don't know if we're going to like a job until we're in the job.
Yeah.
So you have to do those things to know that. And the more that you are aware of and challenging yourself to ask questions around, how do I feel when I'm doing this, the more information that you're going to get. And so the best thing that you can do for yourself is just to start. The worst thing you can do is stay in this analysis paralysis. And I see so many clients do this where they don't know what they want to do, so they do nothing.
Mm.
And so just get a job and just start,
Yeah.
see how it goes. And then maybe you decide you want to go to school, or maybe you decide, right? But you just got to start somewhere. You just do. No,
I
it's not exactly the answer that people want, but
right.
it's the only way. There's no other way for you to figure this out.
Yeah.
Truly. I mean, you can take aptitude after test, after aptitude test, after whatever it is. It's the same thing with like dating, right? You can sit there and answer 1,000,001 questions about, I like dogs and I like walks on the beach. But until you get into the room with the person, you don't know if you're attracted to them, and you don't know if there's a spark.
Mm.
Like, there has to be that spark. And that is hard to define.
Yeah.
You just have to do it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's the same, dating, you've got to just go on the date. I don't know, go. But you have to take the same approach that I tell my clients to take around dating, which is exactly what you said to your son about going for that interview, which is you have to see of like, I'm going to go meet hopefully an interesting person. We're going to have a good conversation. Maybe if there's a spark, great. If not, at the very least, I'll have a cup of coffee or a drink, or I'll do, and I'll meet someone new and I'll have a good conversation. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
That is it.
You might get a friend out of it, or at least you can stop talking to them on whatever dating app if it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
Like, decision made at that point.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. But the problem is when we stay in that place of, well, I only want to go on this date if it's going to be successful and we're going to fall in love, then it's like, well, you'll never know that. And your expectations are too high. You're always going to be disappointed. You're always going to be disappointed until, and then you're probably going to stop dating. And then, so yeah, you got to keep showing up. You got to just keep, okay, this is what I'm doing, and not take yourself so seriously and worry so much about how this is all going to turn out. Eventually, if you continue to date, you will trust me, you will find someone.
Yeah.
But you're just not going to find them in your living room. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah. I want to go back to the career piece of this also, and
Mm-hmm.
the just kind of like advice to just start working. Because I know there's a stereotype of the younger people, and this started with millennials and the like 1 year stint at all these different companies
Mm-hmm.
on their resume and that looking bad and everything, which my personal take, not that anyone asked, but I'm going to give it anyway because this is my show. But my personal take on that is like, if companies were more loyal, people would be more loyal, but they're not that loyal anymore. So fuck them. Like, sorry, that's the way that it is. But do you think that this advice to just explore for a little while, do you think that feeds into that at all? Or is there anything wrong with just having a couple of, oh, I was here for 6 months, I was here for a year, I was here for whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything wrong with that on a resume these days?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. You would have to, I'm sure if you got an HR person, they would tell you, right? And I've heard various things from HR people. I've heard sometimes it's like you need 2 years at a place, there you need this amount or that amount. I think so much of it depends. I do think that there is a point at which, if I saw, I think you just have to think about what's your story.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how can you explain this? And I think that if this is your 5th job and you've hit the 1 year mark and you want to go, I would stop you at that point and say, okay, something's up here. Like, we need to figure out what's going on. Why do you do that? But I will tell you, in my 20s, I think I usually lasted about 2 years, 2.5 years at things. Like, and I did that. This is the longest job I've ever had, is working for myself, because I figured out what I want to do and I'm doing it. And so I don't think that it's bad for a young person to have these short stints, but I think that the piece of it for the young person is, I wouldn't worry so much about that, but are you being cognizant of what's happening? Because I do think that most likely there is something going on. The decision making is off, or something's happening here where it's not and maybe you're expecting something from work. Maybe you're wanting to get something from work that you're never going to get. And maybe that's what you have to work on and think about.
Yeah.
So I think it's more about the story. I've certainly had clients that they worked somewhere maybe for 4 or 5 years, and then they've gotten like, this job was this long, this job was this long. And I'm kind of like, but that's part of your story. Like,
Yeah.
my sister actually, she worked for our father for 20 years. He's also an attorney, and in the last couple of years he finally at 80 retired. um but he
Congrats.
doesn't even say yeah, I know it. I'm like, how's retirement? He's like, I'm not retired, I've got one case, like he's just determined to hold on.
Holding on, yeah.
But yeah, he loves being a lawyer. So but she's now at her third job since she left our father, and she's like, God, do people think I'm flaky? I'm like, no, you were there for 20 years. Like, you're trying to figure it out. This is the story. This makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I think it's you have to make it make sense for people. And so when it stops making sense to you, that's telling you something's off.
Yeah. I don't know how much like help you give with resumes to your clients, but have you ever had someone group their experiences together and be like, this was my explorer era on their resume or something like that? Like, I could definitely see
Oh.
someone creatively putting that on their resume as a group of things that they were doing.
Yeah. That's pretty smart though, I have to say. But no, I am not I always tell people that what I do, because I know people that will help you write your resume and look at
Yeah,
job
yeah.
things that, like, there are people that are experts in this. I'm just getting you primed for that.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there. Listen, I'm in sales. I can, I can put stuff together. I don't help other people with their resumes unless I already know them. Please don't send me your resume to help you with. Unless you want to give me a bunch of money, then maybe I'll do it. Whatever. Who knows?
Yeah.
but
There's so,
but
what?
yeah,
It is so cheap to get someone on Fiverr or
it
one of these
really
other
is.
places to get
Yes.
it done. And it's not as expensive as people think. And I
Yeah.
always tell people, like, if you're going to do anything, do that,
Hmm.
because they're going to make your resume look so awesome. You're going to feel like, oh my God, I love this person. And
Yeah.
you're going to feel such confidence submitting it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, you talked about relationships a little bit, so I want to go back to that as well. What advice do you
Mhm.
have for young people who might be struggling with relationships? And I don't just mean romantic, like that could be
Mhm.
friendships or family, because that's a big change from high school to college even, but then from college
Mhm.
on in your adult life. That's a massive change in how those relationships are structured. So what advice do you give people whenever they're facing those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think one is, and this is hard whether you've just graduated from high school or from college, is it's always a shock to the system to realize, like, oh, wait a second, friendships aren't the same. That
Yeah.
once you're in the working world, friendships change. And that because, you forget when you're in high school and college, you are surrounded by people your own age, and you are all have the same schedule, and maybe you're all living together. So life is just easy. It's organic.
Yeah.
Things just happen, things go. You don't know where the day is going to take you. And that's the great part about it. But now, yeah, you're gonna have to work at the relationships. And I think that's the biggest piece of it, is you have to start seeing your relationships as work.
Hmm.
You didn't have to work on them so hard. Your friend was just there. You didn't have to think about them in that way. They just showed up. So what I would say is that you really want to focus on, okay, if it's friends, then you have to think about, okay, how do I invest in my friendships? And even if a friend doesn't live in your city, like, how do I, what do we do? Do we schedule a weekly call with each other? Do monthly? Do we make sure that we visit each other? I always tell people, like, have a shorthand via text. Like, purple heart means I'm thinking about you. Green heart means I need you. Like, whatever it is, like, have a way of doing shorthand, and so that way you don't have to type out a whole text message. You can just let them know I'm thinking about you and stay connected to them in that way. But also realizing that, yeah, maybe most likely that friendship may not last, and that's okay. It's, you want to, you want to take time and energy to invest in your relationships if you feel like you're getting things back from that person.
Yeah.
So, yeah, certainly don't invest more of yourself in someone than they're investing in you. Um, and I think family is always tricky because, some parents do a pretty good job of making the transition into seeing their kids as adults. Other parents really struggle with it. I am a big believer in, if you have family and you have struggles with your family, that boundaries. Boundaries are your friend. A good friend of mine who has she has a podcast called Relationships Made Easy. Highly recommend. Her name's Dr. Abby Metcalf. And she wrote a book recently, it's out, called Boundaries Made Easy. And she wrote that because she found that like everything came back to boundaries. Like, how do you improve your relationship? Boundaries. How do you do this? Boundaries. And I think that is a big one with friendships, is really thinking about, right, how do I want to, how do I want to be treated? Because when you're in college, you have a lot more free time. You can hang out with someone you kind of sort of don't, you think they're so. But now, you're working full time, people are scattered. Like, who your friend is, who you're investing in is important. So you need to see relationships, no matter what it is, as an investment of your time and energy. And you have to want to invest in it, and you have to feel like that person's investing in you. And that's what you want to look for.
Yeah.
And then romantic things, I think the other part of it too is there's always this fear of, oh, am I going to meet someone? What's going to happen? And that's the part of it is that I don't know, like, I don't know what your path is going to look like. If you want to be married and have children, you can make that happen, but you have to date, you have to go out. Like, that's the other part of it is that any of these, if you want something, you can go out there and find it, but it requires you to go and do the work and put yourself out there and so on. But the other thing that I tell people all the time is I've been married over 20 years. I tell people, like, I love my husband. We're very happy together, but being married doesn't solve all your problems. That doesn't. So don't check boxes just to check boxes. And please, God, do not have children unless you 150% want children, because it is too much work for something that you're kind of so on, and that part's really important. But yeah, it's such a broad topic. It's hard for me to cover all of it, but Abby's podcast is great. She talks about all of these relationships. But I think the hardest part for young people is really the friendship.
Yeah.
It's such a show Friends, and yeah. I mean, I love the show Friends, but I think it really, for a whole generation, really made people misinterpret what it's like to be in your 20s.
Yeah.
And that's what would happen is I would have clients that would come to me. They'd be like, I don't have any friends anymore, and I'm a loser, and I'm this and I'm that, because they're watching the show Friends thinking that everybody else has that situation. I'm like, they don't. No one does.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those. I totally agree. Like, don't get married just to get married, because sometimes it causes more problems. Not only does it not solve problems, sometimes it causes more problems. Like, take your time, make sure you're good.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that if your partner loves you and cares about you and is investing in you, then it does improve your life. It does help you. They are there for you. If they are not, then it is a drain.
Yeah.
And so, it's every piece of that. And I think that especially for women, we are sort of told that being married, you need to be married. That's what makes you special or important. You need to have children. It's like, no, you don't. Yeah. And if you, and listen, you can get married. Getting married is not hard at all. Being married's hard, and staying married's hard.
Yeah.
And so that's the other part of it is please do not subscribe to like these ideas of what it means to be happy. It's not checking boxes. It's really about you liking yourself, having peace of mind, enjoying what you're doing, all of that.
Yeah, don't just get married because that's what people say it's time to do.
Yes.
It's not a good idea.
Please.
I promise you it's not a good idea. Same with kids. First of all, my advice is don't have kids. And that is coming from someone who absolutely adores and loves her own children. And also, I could tell you so many stories. And if by the time you're done hearing my stories, you're like, yeah, that still sounds okay, then you're crazy. Yeah. But also go for it. Like, then you're meant for it then. Great.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this comment. Children are great, but they're not a solution to anything ever. No. Children are not a solution at all.
No.
Again, I love my children so very much. I don't ever want them to hear this and think like, oh, my mom thinks having children is a bad thing. I love my children. My personal path is my personal path. My advice to everyone else is don't have kids. First of all, they're not going to be as good as mine. So there's that. But yeah, it's kids are never a solution to anything.
No.
That's for sure. They do only bring things to get over and
Yeah.
and grow over. So
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I'm so grateful, right? All those hormones and chemicals that make you love your child so much. It's so
yes,
important because
yes,
even when that's what I try to explain to people. I'm like, even when I want to strangle him, I love him. And
yeah.
I don't. And that's the other part of it too, is I will make these jokes too. And then I think, but I can't imagine my life without him.
Oh, not at all.
Like I
No.
wouldn't want him not here.
Mm-mm.
So that's the thing. It's a lot. It's challenging. It's recently my parents are now they're divorced and they're both 81 and my sister and I have had to put our mom in assisted living and
Mm.
this place is great. Trust me. This is not like one of those horrible places. It's really nice, but it is interesting to be on this other weird side of things of like my sister and I working really hard trying to get the money together to make this happen for our mother and then she's in her place, enjoying smoothies and getting her nails done. I'm like, this is a real reversal, isn't
Yeah.
this? Of like, but you do, being a parent is that once I became a parent, it really helped me appreciate my own parents.
Yeah.
And it's like, I am so happy to do all this stuff for my mother now
Mhm.
because I want her to enjoy her life. My sister and I are very determined, we want her to be happy and be healthy and be safe and be
Yeah.
somewhere that she can thrive. And we are willing to do whatever we have to do to make it happen. And I think that's one of the really nice things is like these values that your parents teach you and to do. And my parents very much made that happen for me, and I do that for my son. Um, that's the really cool thing about becoming a parent and learning these things. But just
Yeah.
no, don't do it if you don't for sure want it.
Yes.
For
Most
sure.
definitely. Most definitely. So if someone's in this explorer mindset and they're getting a little
Mhm.
frustrated or impatient or they feel like they should be making more progress, how can someone know if they're actually stuck or if they are just being a little impatient and they need to continue on the path they're on?
And this one's always really, really hard because nothing is going to take everything's going to take a hell of a lot longer than you ever thought it was.
Yeah.
So I think that again, it comes down to a couple different things. It comes down to you have to really sit with yourself. I'm always going to tell you to like sit with yourself and really ask yourself, like, what, what do I think's going to happen or what am I looking for to happen? Um, do I still enjoy what I'm doing? Am I still enjoying this process of what I'm doing? And, for example, if you're doing a podcast, let's say, and it's not bringing you money or it's not being as successful as you want it to be, then some of it is you have to ask yourself, like, do I enjoy this podcast? If four people listen to it, do I still want to do it? Do I feel like I'm aligned in the way that I want to? Am I doing it the way in which I want to do it? Am I requiring myself? I really think that part's important. And then you have to weigh those options and get back down to, okay, do I still want to do this thing? Do I still want to get up and podcast if no one is listening to me?
Yeah.
And if you find out like, no, I don't enjoy this, and I don't want to talk to four people, I don't want to do that, then yeah, you're probably not in the right headspace.
Mm-hmm.
And that maybe this isn't gonna work for you. So it always comes down to like, what is your intention? What is your drive? What are you trying to get from this? And if you, I always, so you want to let go of the outcome. You want to just focus on the doing of the thing. So if your goal is you want to start a podcast because you want to be a podcaster, yeah, okay. Ultimately, you would like to make a living from it, but you really have to let go of the outcome of how you're going to be able to make a living from this. You have to let go of what that is going to look like.
Yeah.
You can't get attached to, well, I'm going to get this many numbers and then this is going to happen. Then I'm going to get this many numbers and then this is going to happen. Like you just have to show up, put your stuff out there and then go, okay, whatever happens, happens. And you have to want to keep getting up and doing this.
Mhm.
You have to. So if you stop wanting to get up and do this, then this isn't meant for you,
Yeah.
you know?
I'll say specific to podcasting, like,
Yeah.
don't go into it for money. Don't go into it for money. Go into it because you want to talk about something at length and help maybe one person if that's your goal.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
that you got to go into it with that mindset of like, no, I really like talking about this, and I really like talking to other people, hearing their stories,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, because that's what keeps me going, at least. But yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
hard if you're in something and you're like, oh, is this something I'll really enjoy doing, even if I don't make a lot of money? And
Mhm.
that's hard, especially if you are needing to take care of like rent and that kind of stuff. That's a hard thing
Yeah.
to ask yourself. But that goes back to kind of what we talked about earlier too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are times where you need to pivot because maybe the culture of the world is changing or
Hmm.
shifting. I mean, I do think there are times where things are shifting, things are changing. Um, Over the years, people have always said to me, "Oh, you should be an executive coach," because one of the things about working with young people is a lot of young people don't have any money,
Yeah.
and I don't take insurance, and coaching's expensive. And so, yeah, I get a lot of parents that are paying for it, or I work it out with them individually. But people would always say to me, "Oh, yeah, well, don't work with young people. You should, just work with CEOs." And I'm like, I don't want to work with CEOs. I don't like those CEOs at all. I don't, I'm every time I hear from one, I don't want to, I don't like it. So that's the part that's hard, right? Is for me personally, I had to really stop and think, okay, what does that look like?
Hmm.
How do I do this? And over the years, what's happened is I have pivoted. I started creating programs and things that people can buy and work, this thing's $10 and this thing's $20. And then I do a lot more corporate work now because I do believe that the company should pay for it.
Yeah.
I wish people's insurance companies were decent and they would pay for it for you. Trust me, I do not I would prefer people not to have to do this out of pocket. I just can't make a living otherwise.
Yeah.
So what I found is that, oh, I can make really good money by giving talks, and I can make really good money and I can still talk to young people and do that, or I can do corporate work and work with people individually, or I can talk to older generations about embracing Gen Z, right? Like there's things that I can do where people can pay me and I don't have to then be an executive coach
Hmm.
for some, C-suite that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
So that's the other part of it too, is yeah, there are some times where what you're producing or doing, either isn't resonating with people or there isn't money in it or there isn't going to work. And yeah, that's hard. So then you have to decide, like, is this worth it for me to do? And then how do I pivot to make money if that's my goal?
Yeah. Yeah. What's one piece of advice you wish every adult could hear? Every young adult, but every adult also, I suppose.
Yeah. Nobody is paying attention to you as much as you think they are.
For
And
real.
no one cares. I say this from a place of love. No one, you're not that interesting. No one's paying attention to you. And that's an awesome thing. So
Yeah.
go to that dance class and look like a fool. You know what I mean? Like, who cares? No one's paying attention to you. Honestly, at the most, someone would be like, see that wacky person dancing? Yeah. Done. Done. You're gone. We are so concerned with ourselves, what we're going to eat for dinner later, what we're going to do tomorrow, what's going to happen here. Is my crush interested in me? Like, we do not care about other people. And I should say, we are not as other people are not as interested in what we are doing and things. So stop.
Yeah.
Stop worrying about that. Just let it go.
Yeah.
I know that's easier said than done, but like this person does not care about me that much. Like this is not interesting to them. So go make those mistakes.
Hmm.
Because you can, because no one's watching.
Yeah. There's definitely like people are as wrapped up in themselves as you are wrapped up in yourself.
Yes.
Like you just gotta remember that. Not one person remembers, and I don't know why this has stuck with me over this many years, because this was probably in 2007, 2008. Not one person remembers the time my shoe broke and I skinned my knee walking down the hallway at
Hmm.
work. Like, not one
Yeah.
person remembers that. I was so embarrassed for the rest of the rest of the day, and
Hmm.
and no one remembers that at all except for
Yeah.
me. Probably, I think maybe one person saw it happen and they were just like, "Oh, are you okay?" And I was like,
Hmm.
yeah, I guess I got to go change into my tennis shoes now. Like, and then they moved on with their day and probably didn't think
Yeah.
another thing about it, but I was embarrassed for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
But no one cared. No one cared about it then. No one cares about it now. I don't even know why it's still in my brain, but there it is.
Yeah.
Oh, that's for sure. Well, we are coming up on the last couple of questions. So, folks who are here in the chat, if you have anything else for Tess about the young adults and explorer mindset, make sure that you go ahead and get those questions in. But Tess, what is your favorite life hack?
I love, I'm a big believer in setting times. So, for example, if you have to clean out say you have to clean out your closet or whatever it is, pick a time, again, a time that's eh, to keep that scary but doable. So you want to pick a time frame that's like feels like, oh yeah, I can do that for 20 minutes, but it can't be 2 minutes. It
Yeah.
has to be significant enough to do something. And then just start breaking things up that way. My husband and I we have been like cleaning out our kitchen, and we do it in what we call quadrants. Like, this is quadrant 1, and we just did quadrant 1. Okay, great, done. And we still need to do quadrant 5, but that's how we were able to do it, because we could not tackle it all at once. It was too over, like every time we sat down to think about it, it just became so overwhelming. So you want to either, I know it's a very common life hacks, but you want to find creative ways of just small things, or just one closet, or 20 minutes,
Yeah.
one of the two.
Yeah. I like doing it by like an episode of a show.
Hmm.
I'm going to put on a
Yeah.
show, and for one episode, I'm going to work on this thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, that works great for me for laundry, although I usually just do the whatever laundry is there and put on the show for as long as I need it. But yeah, I mean, you could say, okay, for the next 5 songs on my Spotify playlist, I'm going to clean out my closet.
Yeah.
Or, however you need to break it down. It doesn't have to be a timer on your phone, but a timer on your phone also works. And
Yeah.
and there are apps for that too, where I think it's the Pomodoro technique, that's like 20 minutes
Yes.
of
Yes.
focus, and so you can, if you really want to, here I go, me, a millennial with my apps, but it just came out. It just came out of my mouth.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Well, because you guys all came out into, right, like the dawn of social media was very much 2007,
Yeah.
2008, right, around that time. And so you entered the workforce in the world
Mhm.
at a time when this is how things were structured. So it makes
Yeah.
sense. It makes sense. But
I don't remember what it was
it's just one
for.
of those things I've noticed over the years, like,
It's true.
because my Gen Zers aren't into it so much, but my generation, we're not. And I'm like, God, it's just really,
Yeah, it is.
every time it's this
It
generation,
is.
you know.
Yep.
Oh.
I literally was talking about a gardening app tonight while I was at one of my son's activities, because one of my girlfriends had brought a piece of paper and she was like planning out her garden. And I was like, oh, there's an app. But it's true. There used to be some, I don't remember if it was an advertisement or if it was just like a kind of meme thing, but it was like, there's an app for that. There was some
Yeah.
specific
Oh yeah.
thing that was, I don't even know what that was for, but yeah, that cracks me up. All right, well, it is time for our magic moment of the stream. If you could wave a magic wand and eliminate one common opinion or misconception surrounding mental illness, disabilities, or talking about mental health, what would it be?
Mhm. That it means that you're weak.
Mm.
That it means there's that you're not a strong person, and that just drives me crazy, because it takes a tremendous amount of courage to sit down and talk about yourself, and it takes a tremendous amount of courage to open yourself up, to work on yourself, to say, hey, I got this issue or that issue, or I feel this way or that way. I think it's one of the things that I love about these younger generations, especially Gen Zers, is how open they are about mental health, and how they do not criticize each other and look at each other as less than.
Mm-hmm.
If you struggle with something, they all, because they see it very much, which I love, as part of this human condition, right? The reality is that everybody needs to be in therapy. Everybody does. Everybody, if it's and unfortunately in our society it's become this luxury, but it shouldn't be. Everybody
Yeah.
needs a therapist. Everyone needs a coach. You're going to need both of those people at some point in your life, many times in your life, and everyone should have the ability to have it. So And that's, I think myself and so many other therapists, we're trying to figure out a way of making it more equitable, making it more, so that everyone has resources. But no, working on yourself, finding yourself, owning your stuff, owning your shit, like that's courage. That's true courage. And that vulnerability, if you're a fan of Brene Brown, vulnerability is being vulnerable is the it is the best thing that you can do for yourself, like being willing to open up with people. Now, you don't want to be vulnerable, you need trust. Trust and vulnerability go hand in hand. So you're not going to be vulnerable with your first date or whatever it is. But like being in a relationship and being really vulnerable with that person, that takes courage. That
Mhm.
takes a tremendous amount of strength and courage. And I think that it's interesting as I see my parents getting older. I've had to my sister and I were cleaning out our mom's house, and we found these letters that our father wrote. Our parents have been divorced a long time, and realizing that my father is about the age that I am now when he wrote these letters, and sort of realizing like, oh wow, you never grew. You did not. You just stayed. You are stuck.
Mhm.
Like this is you never pushed yourself to ever grow and really ask yourself these big questions. And I love my father, I do, but like, yeah, he's kind of an asshole. And so it's this recognition or this understanding of, I think someone would look at him and go, that is what strength is. And it's like, no, he's can't even write a note to his ex-wife and be honest
Mhm.
and be vulnerable or be real or anything. He can't. I tried to talk to him about death the other day. Like a couple months ago, he didn't even want to talk to me about that. I'm like, okay, fine, fine. Like, but I think that is really, I think he thinks differently, but I think that that's a shame because why are
Yeah.
we here? Why are we here? If we're here to learn and to grow and to make connections and have relationships with people and do things that give us a purpose and all of those things, like why are we here? We're here to learn and grow. And so why would you stop wanting to do that? I just don't get that. I really don't.
Yeah. No, I don't. I don't either, but I know that was the mindset for a long time, and I know
Yeah.
a big problem with some of the older generations. And not to say that younger people can't, whatever. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, like it's late now.
No, I mean, listen, like it's the not all men thing, right? Like, of course, there's going to be
Yes, yes.
exceptions to some older folks are going to be willing to talk about it, and some younger folks aren't going to be willing to talk about it, and it's just there's somewhere in between. But generalizations are there.
Yeah, but what I think is interesting if I go back to my father, right? Because my uncle, who's just a year older than my father, he has worked on himself.
Mm,
Like, and I see him now and I see how he is. And I don't know the inner workings of his life and all of
yeah.
his relationships, but I do. That's the thing. Anyone can do it. And I'm always fascinated by people ask, like, how are you happy? How do you get happy? How do you have this? How do you have that? And it's
Mm,
like, well, it's doing this work on yourself.
yeah.
Like that's what it is. That is what's going to give you the things that you want and peace of mind. And so, yeah, someone else, my father may say to me, well, I'm happy and I have peace of mind. And it's like, okay, that's great. But and then you have to think about the impact you have on people,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
If you'd gone to
So,
therapy, you might have been a little more happy.
yeah. Hmm.
For sure. Well, I am going to post your socials one more time so that everybody can connect with you if they would like to. And while I'm doing that, if there's anything you want to throw out there as far as resources or personal recommendations or anything, I'm just going to turn it over to you so I can post these links one more time.
Yeah. Let's see. One of the best books I've people always asking me about book recommendations. So one of the best books I've read, and I recommend it to a lot of people, that I think it's very well done, is called Emotional Agility
Hmm.
by Dr. Susan David. She's a professor at Harvard, and she talks a lot about work, and that's the big chunk of what she's talking about. But this book, it's very straightforward and it's very clear. I love, love, love Brene Brown. I've read all of her books. I will go to the ends of the earth defending her. But her stuff can be a little flowery and a little bit like, well, how do I apply this to my
Yeah.
life? And what I like about emotional agility is at the root of what Dr. Susan David's talking about, the root of what she's talking about is this, we all struggle. We all have the same struggle with core, we don't feel good enough. And so um at the core we don't feel good enough around ourselves and who we are. So that's the challenge that we have, is learning to recognize that within ourselves, and what are the ways in which this not enoughness is affecting the choices that we're making in our relationships and so on. So I think she does a really good job with emotional agility, and that's what I subscribe to, which is that you have to be agile. I mean, I know it's annoying when you'll ask like someone like myself questions, because it will say, well, it kind of depends. It depends on this and it depends on that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the thing, it does depend. Every situation is different. How you feel about things are different. What's going on in your world. So you have to be willing to say, you have to be open to the fact that sometimes you're going to react like this in some situations, sometimes this is a better reaction, sometimes this is a better reaction, and that there are times that you're not going to have the best reaction.
Yeah.
And that's okay too.
Yeah.
You have to be agile with yourself.
Yeah.
So I really like those books. I'm trying to think, there's so much good stuff out there. And so I'm a big, big believer in, find those people that you really connect with and follow them. But at the end of the day, you've got to make your own decisions.
Yeah.
Like, no, don't, please. No one should be your guru. No one should be, you should not be following every last piece of advice that any one person is giving you. Like you decide how you're going to live your life. Um, and I do think that too many voices can be overwhelming. So find those few voices and, be open to new ones. But yeah, it's always going to come down to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love that. Well, Tess, thank you so much for taking the time tonight to chat with us. I think this has been a really lovely conversation. I just appreciate you coming on here.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'm excited to see the people from your community, all that good stuff. It was great meeting you.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Even Tacos Fall Apart. I hope that conversation with Tess gave you something solid to take with you. Whether it's permission to slow down, the reminder that it's okay to not have it all figured out, or just the push to take one small step towards something that feels right. One of the things I keep coming back to is what Tess said about getting out of analysis paralysis. The idea that we can't wait until everything is perfectly lined up to act. Whether you're fresh out of high school, knee-deep into your first job, or 10 years into a career that doesn't feel like yours anymore, that explorer mindset gives you the space to try, learn, and adjust without beating yourself up for not knowing everything already. Life doesn't hand out a roadmap. It's built step by step by showing up, messing up, and adjusting as you go. I think a lot of us need to hear that it's not failure to pivot. It's not failure to outgrow things. It's not failure to want something different than what you thought you did 5 years ago. If this conversation resonated with you, if you felt seen, if you felt less alone, or if you just appreciated the honesty, I'd really appreciate if you would take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe or leave a comment wherever you're listening. That helps other people find the show, and it makes a huge difference for independent creators like I am. If you know someone who's struggling with these same questions, feeling stuck, lost, or under pressure to have everything figured out, share this episode with them. You never know what kind of impact that could have. And if you want to stay connected, you can always find the link to tacosfallapart.com down in the episode show notes. That'll get you to the resources that were mentioned in the episode. It'll get you ways to connect with me. It'll get you all the links to socials, everything like that. I love hearing from you, so please do connect. Remember, you don't need to have a 5-year plan to be making progress. Exploration counts. Curiosity counts. And showing up counts. Thanks for being here with me today. I'll be back soon with more raw, real conversations. And until then, take care of yourself, give yourself some damn credit, and remember, even tacos fall apart and we still love them, and I still love you.